All right, so we're going to go over an AFC North matchup that's going to take place this Sunday between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just to kind of give you guys a rundown of the matchup ahead on Sunday. Start with the Bengals first. So the Bengals are coming off of a tough road loss to the Chicago Bears last week, where they lost by the score of 20-17. As it currently stands, the Bengals sit at 1-1 going into week 3. And then to kick it to the Steelers lost a home game to the Las Vegas Raiders last week by the score of 26-17. Same as the Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers currently sit at a 1-1 record going into week 3. So Kevin, I'll pose this question to you. Who do you think wins this AFC North matchup and why?
So normally I would pick the Pittsburgh Steelers, but from my understanding and from the injury report that Kyle and I just talked about prior to the game, you have Joe Hayden limited in practice this week, Ben Roethlisberger limited in practice, Deontay Johnson has not practiced all week, and TJ Watt is limited in practice. Those are kind of the three focal points on both sides of the ball for each kind of respective position. You have two players on defense, two players on offense, and both of them significant playmakers on that side. So I'm not going to sit here and say Pittsburgh's an obvious favorite. I mean, Najee Harris has also been struggling running the football. The offensive line in Pittsburgh has been struggling to keep Ben upright. So I am kind of going to just choose Pittsburgh out of safety if those players do play. But I don't think it's going to be a big marginal victory. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if Cincinnati actually upsets, even with the lack of the offensive line that they have, or don't have, should I say. The star-studded performance of the three-headed monster that is the receiving core in Cincinnati of Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, and Joe Burrow's, stepping up of play sorts, obviously excluding the 3 interceptions that he threw last week. It was a tough loss, like Kyle said. I think Joe bounces back. I think Joe Mixon has himself a pretty big game, and especially if the defensive side of the ball is limited on Pittsburgh's side, being TJ Watt and Joe Hayden. I think that Cincinnati has a good opportunity to steal one here in Pittsburgh. Joe Burrow's coming off of that ACL injury. He had a bad game last week, like I said. I don't think that they're going to make the same mistakes twice. But if TJ Watt is able to impact this game and the Pittsburgh defensive line that does contain Melvin Ingram as well, I do think it is going to be hard to keep Joe Burrow upright like it has been for the majority of his career. But if they can get the ball out of Joe's hands pretty quick, if they can make some plays downfield and those receivers can get separation from that Pittsburgh secondary, I do believe that Cincinnati can come away with this win. But once again, if Pittsburgh players do come back and they do play this game effectively, this could be I want to say a 7-point win. But again, I think that each injury is pretty significant. TJ and Joe Hayden both have groin injuries. Deontay Johnson, I believe, hurt his knee last week on the last play of the game against Vegas. And then obviously Ben's got a pec injury, so we do not know the significance of how that is going to hold him or kind of affect him throughout the game or his throwing motion for that matter. So we will have to play it by ear, but if I had to put money on it, I'm not a betting man. I will say that Pittsburgh does squeak this one out, maybe by 3 to 7 points. I will say that this is just significantly closer for the sheer fact that Pittsburgh is injured.
I'm a little bit more confident in Pittsburgh than you are. So just to kind of throw my prediction for this game, I do think that the Steelers win this divisional matchup against the Bengals this weekend, simply just because I don't think that the Bengals defense is going to be able to withstand the firepower that Pittsburgh offense has with Ben Roethlisberger, Najee Harris, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, simply just because when I look at some of the matchups that the Bengals have played this season, particularly one in particular with the Minnesota Vikings, where Kirk Cousins lit up that Bengals defense. Now, granted, the Vikings did lose that game in overtime to the Bengals, but Kirk Cousins was 36 of 49, threw for 350 yards, and had 2 touchdowns. Now, when it comes to Big Ben, Ben Roethlisberger is looking like he's coming towards the end of his career, but he's still viable in the sense that he can light up a defense if he's given a clean pocket. And I do think that Pittsburgh's offensive line will be able to give Ben a clean pocket in this matchup against the Bengals. So I do expect that the offense for the Steelers is going to be firing on all cylinders. I do expect that the Steelers are going to put up somewhere around maybe like 27 to 31 points in this matchup. And I just don't expect that Joe Burrow and Cincinnati's offense is going to be able to contend with that. And you kind of hit on the point of Steelers having a weakened defense because of the injuries that they're currently going through. I think these injuries are not as significant as the injury report states. I think by and large, I think TJ Watt's going to be able to play. I still think that Joe Hayden and some of the other players that are listed on the injury report on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to be able to step up and be able to suit up for this game. And I just don't expect that Joe Burrow is going to be able to light up this Steelers defense. I mean, Joe Burrow is coming off of a game, like you mentioned, where he threw 3 interceptions against the Bears defense. And the Bears don't necessarily have the best defense in the league, but the Steelers have a much better defense than the Bears do. So I do expect that Steelers defense to give Joe Burrow some trouble. I do expect them to bring a consistent pass rush against Joe Burrow for most of the day. And I find it very hard to believe that I think the Bengals are going to get above 20, 25 points in this matchup. So when you combine all those factors together, I think the Steelers win this one by maybe a touchdown, maybe at most like 10 points. I don't think it's going to be a runaway game, but I do think that the Steelers do win this game like 31-21, somewhere kind of like in that point margin. And I do think that when it's all said and done after week 3 is over, that the Steelers are 2-1 and that the Bengals are 1-2.
It's funny because I don't think that the Bengals are no longer a walkover, or should I say an easy victory. They are better on the offensive side of the ball. They are showing that they can put up some points and compete with other teams. It is unfortunate that Cincinnati decided to draft Jamar Chase instead of the offensive lineman out of Oregon, as Kyle and I both alluded to after the draft. If Joe Burrow does not stay upright, he's not making it long in this league whatsoever. We're 2 games in, and that man has already been hit way more times than he has needed to be after recovering from an ACL injury. If Joe does not stay upright, God knows how long that the Cincinnati's future is going to be. I mean, excuse me, the Lord knows how long Cincinnati is going to be suffering without him. Because when Joe's on that field versus when he's not, you can see the difference. Obviously, the energy, the confidence, the ability for him to make some great plays with his arm and some of his leg. I just think that Joe is in jeopardy of his career ending early, similar to an Andrew Luck type of injury, where he's just consistently battered and bruised through the majority of his career until his body's not going to be able to take it. I'm definitely worried. And Pittsburgh, being the pass rush and defensive prowess that they are and juggernaut that they are in the AFC North, I think that this is going to be a big test to see if Joe can stay upright and if that offensive line can make some protection adjustments, because without it, God knows how far Joe's going to make it in his career.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow, like if he stays upright for most of this game, I do think that he's going to be able to keep this game close. It's just whether or not that he turns the ball over. Last week,
Yeah.
he was very turnover happy with the 3 interceptions against the Bears. I think if he limits those turnovers in this game, I think it'll keep Cincinnati in this game. I don't expect it to be enough against the Steelers. I think the Steelers get a bounce back win after they had somewhat of a surprising loss to the Vegas Raiders last week. Maybe that's just because we weren't expecting Vegas to be up 2-0 2 games into the season. But I think the Steelers get it together this weekend, and I think they bounce back and they win this game by like 7 to 10 points, like I mentioned.
Nevertheless, as always, super excited to see NFL Sundays back and consistently just reoccurring again. Oh, God, it's just a relief. But as always, guys, thank you so much for all the support. Please like the video if you find the content interesting. And if you do like what we talk about consistently, please make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications button so you can get notified of when we're going to be posting new content. But that about wraps it up for our segments for this evening. Today went a lot longer than we both thought. There was a lot of bloopers. Eventually, we will probably get a blooper reel put together, but definitely a fun night recording as always. That wraps it up on my end. As always, thank you so much for everything. Kyle, you got anything for the guys?
No, I'm all set. Like you said, if you guys like the content, hit that like button below. If you guys want to subscribe, any support that we can get for the channel, we definitely appreciate. And that's all I got. So with that said, you guys, thank you guys for tuning in once again, and we will see you guys later.